carb tolerant people that can eat quite a lot of carbohydrates and not put on any weight. And then there's other type of people that look at a carbohydrate and they get fat. So what we're trying to do is, we're not going to say you can never have carbohydrates, but what we try and do is we assess the waist to hip ratio, and we found that people that have a high waist ratio, when we do give them carbohydrates, they sort of stay inflamed for quite a long period of time. So what we try and do is, we don't cook carbs out, we just control them. You know, so what we have, a little very simple analogy, it's called the ABC: adequate protein, balanced fats, and controlled carbohydrates. So again, we're looking at having the right amount of protein, the right amount of essential fats, but timing the carbohydrates to suit people that are metabolically inflexible. So people that don't do well on carbohydrates, that put on a lot of weight, we just give them carbohydrates maybe after training or at dinner time. We control it until the weight loss starts to come.
Hello and welcome back. It's Mike here with High Intensity Health Radio. Thanks for tuning back into another episode. I'm super excited. Today we're live with Eoin Lacey, who is the director at the Irish Strength Institute, which is a leading strength coaching clinic in Ireland. Eoin and I met back in 2008 at the Institute for Functional Medicine's Applying Functional Medicine in Clinical Practice, also known as AFMCP. And since that time, actually, I think, Eoin, you mentioned back in 2002, you started applying functional medicine in your personal training business and helping your fat loss clients and your corporate executives learn some of the foundational principles as it relates, functional medicine principles, that is, as it relates to personal training. So maybe if we can kind of launch there and talk about like what life experiences or people got you involved in this whole functional medicine world, and how did you kind of meld that with personal training and strength and conditioning?
Okay, so the main reason that led me down to looking at functional medicine is I made a lot of mistakes with a lot of clients. I initially started off managing health clubs in Ireland, which was fantastic. But in a health club, you don't get a lot of time with clients. So ideally, what you're trying to do is to give them general recommendations, which you think that may work, but people need more individualization. So back in 2006, I began my education with the Institute for Functional Medicine, and what that gave me is just a different roadmap, a different method of assessing clientele, listening to them, looking into their medical history, their diet history, and then putting a plan in place that will best suit them. Unfortunately for personal trainers, a lot of the recommendations will be from bodybuilding magazines, from websites, and be very generic, where it needs to be more individual. It just has to be more individual for people, you know. So that's an issue. And then the more clientele I got, with more problematic issues like skin problems and gut health and dysbiosis and, you know, compliance problems. You can't just force people to eat less calories and, you know, cut out more carbs. It just doesn't work for everybody. So my education has basically developed because of the clientele that I've had to constantly deal with. So I learn more from my clients than I have from any course I've ever attended.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So when you say this personalization, is that even down to the workout regime, periodization, high fat versus low carb dieting? I mean, how personalized do you like to get with people if their end goal is, say, just weight loss? Like, talk to us about maybe some of the decision trees that would lead you down to decide whether they need to detoxify or improve gut health. Like, how deep do you go with these clients?
Okay, so first of all, my main job is I deal with athletes, whether they be UFC athletes, whether they be rugby athletes, and then I also deal with what we like to call the corporate athlete. So when someone comes into us, they have a specific goal, and our intervention, our training, our nutrition, our contact will all be related to their goal. So ultimately, when somebody comes in, we do a fairly extensive medical history, and from that we go off and see what medication they possibly may be on. We go through what sort of surgery they may have had in the past, and like the IFM, like have a health timeline. We see where they've started their journey, where they currently are. Now, when we find out, let's say, for example, somebody may have erratic travel history, we try to find out what sort of breakfast, lunch, and dinner they can optimize, what sort of supplementation they're on, and then we physically assess them in the gym. Now, there will be some clients that may need to get a digestive stool analysis done. They maybe get a NutriVal from Genova we use quite a lot. Some even clients we had yesterday, we got their 23andMe test results come back, and luckily enough, I've done some study with Ben Lynch with his course, so that's a minefield. So again, we're constantly learning just how to make things a bit more individual for people. But what will lend me to go down different routes is the person sitting in front of me. And one thing that I did last year, I linked up with a guy called Enda McNulty. He's a sports psychologist. And the problem is, I know a lot about nutrition and training, But for him to sit down with somebody, he could get somebody living a healthier life because he knows how to coach them and teach them better. So one thing that I've concentrated a lot on is mindset and mindfulness, which is actually, this is something that you put me onto with Inner Balance and Heart Mat, which I find fantastic. So our interventions will basically be more aggressive with people that are more willing to make bigger changes. Clientele and athletes that may need to have less changes, we'll meet them where they are pretty much. But the more information we have from tests, as in stool analysis, adrenal stress index, nutritional evaluation, we'll do that, but not necessarily off the bat, you know.
Yeah, that's really fantastic. One thing that I found to be very effective as well is talk about this mindset strategy to give people, the bigger reason why they're doing things. And so we can nerd out about ketogenic diets and, fat adaptation and mitochondrial pathways and mTOR and muscle building. But if you don't have that your mindset right, like that stuff is just kind of intellectually titillating, as Jeff Bland would say. So I really like that. Have you found that being, practicing these mind body, whether it's meditation or heart math, does that help with the state of mind to get people and to stick to their goals? Because I know goal setting is a big aspect of your practice, and you talked about the mindset. So are those two concepts connected, or are they different? Can you talk about
that? I think they have to be connected. One thing that I find is everything that you drink, everything that you eat is either going to take you closer to your goal or further away from your goal. And people need to be more invested in every single thing that they do. So even in relation to food, for example, I've got a client there, he travels all over the place, but he just scuffs food down as fast as he can. So we have a very simple system for him, the 5, 10, 15, 5 belly breaths, 10 seconds down every time you take a mouthful, and every meal must be 15 minutes. I know the research says 20, but 15 minutes for him is a big change. But what we want to get people invested in is that every time they drink something or eat something, again, is taking them closer or further away from their goal. And then, again, there's a great book, which I'm sure you've read, by Carol Dweck on mindset, having a growth mindset or having a fixed mindset. When people come to us, unfortunately, they're not necessarily sick, but they're not healthy. As Jeffrey Bland says, the absence of the disease doesn't mean the presence of health. So when somebody comes into us, what we're trying to do is change their environment so we can hopefully speak to their genes to give them a healthier phenotype is our main approach. But so mindfulness has to be a component. If I said to you, for example, you can't eat bread, you'd leave your house today and all you'd see is bread. So we try to program people for success, tell them what they can have, tell them what exercise they can do. And again, using the heart match, which I think is fantastic, and an app that we also recommend, Headspace, it gets people in a better state, a better state to be healthier, to live a healthier life, to make better decisions,
Yeah, that's a really good point. But also, as you talk about in the presentation that you sent to me, is this heart-based, mindfulness activities, if you will. They also reduce cortisol, which is very catabolic. So it's congruent not only in making these dietary choices and being more mindful and improving digestion, but also minimizing the catabolic effects that can be, kind of counteract all the good work that you put in the gym. So I know that you talk about that in some of the programs that you teach and so forth. So do we want to do like heart math and meditation post-workout to minimize that cortisol response, or does it matter the time of day? Have you found anything to be more or less effective?
We've tried a few different things. Cortisol, again, chronic high levels of cortisol can be catabolic, but cortisol is an essential hormone. So necessarily bring it down as fast as we can post-workout can be advantageous. But what we find to do is there's bigger roadblocks or derailers. If you have a client come into you and he feels he wants to put on muscle mass or drop body composition, and he wants to take this carbohydrate post-workout and this supplementation, but the fella isn't sleeping, it doesn't make any sense. Or he's maybe going to bed super late, he's waking up 3 or 4 times during the night. That is more catabolic to his lifestyle than taking a special supplement. Now, don't get me wrong, I love supplements. I think they definitely have their place. But sleep, naps, mindfulness, staying asleep, being more of a relaxed environment, some diaphragmatic breathing, hydration, essential vitamins and minerals, not necessarily some super, sports supplementation is going to be the be all and end all. But I definitely think coping mechanisms or managing stress throughout the day is more important for a balanced cortisol level rather than trying to bring it down post-workout as fast as you can.
Yeah.
Some bodybuilders might disagree with me, but I'm dealing with real life people, not people that are necessarily getting on a bodybuilding stage or competing to that level of physique.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, what you're saying is basically people just have like a small window to work out, like 45, 60 minutes. And then if that doesn't translate, into their helping their work life, if they're like cutting their workout short to then squeeze in all this heart math. So basically do it when you can. That's convenient for you, which is important. And you brought up something, Owen, that I thought was interesting, and that's taking supplements. And the pre-workout supplements are really popular in the bodybuilding world, really high in caffeine and so forth. And we know that can help with, working out in terms of muscular contraction and fat burning and minimizing exercise related fatigue during the workout and so forth, but it also affects sleep. So where do you stand on pre-workout supplements if they're stimulant based? What are your thoughts there?
I'll be completely honest. I'm not a huge fan of stimulants of any nature, and I don't mind like activation, like acetyl-L-carnitine or alpha-lipoic acid or stuff like this. But caffeine or any adrenal stimulant, the adrenal glands, I think, are already overwhelmed as it is. So I'm much more of a supportive adrenal guy. Again, some sort of adaptogenic herbs, some vitamin C, some B5, but I wouldn't be going for any major stimulant at all. I think for the majority of people that we want to exercise them for that, so they have a little bit of mindfulness, that in the moment they're training, they're not worrying about their job or their mortgage or their relationship, so they can get the best out of the training. But heavy stimulants before a workout, I think, can have too much of a negative connotation later on in the daytime. Don't get me wrong, for some of my rugby athletes and so on, I will use beta-alanine, I will use some carnitine, and there is some other stuff that we've used in the past, but excessively stressing the adrenal glands, I don't think it's the best approach for the majority of people that I'm dealing with. The executives and people looking to lose weight and improve muscle mass.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
One thing you just did mention there about the heart mat. One thing that we have used is, what I like to do is, I'm a father. I've got 3 kids. I know you're a father of a young daughter, and again, I run 5 gyms all over the place, and sometimes to my own detriment, when I finish work, I go home, I may be overwhelmed. I'm checking WhatsApp messages because people can see that you've seen it, so you have to get back to them. So what I like to do is I sit on my car in my driveway and I do my heart mat for 5 to 6 minutes before I go into the house. It just allows me to be a better father, a better husband, a better friend, a better brother. I just find that if I go in, I'm half messaging people from work, or I'm getting back to people that have inquiries. I'm not there to hear about my wife's day, or my youngest daughter's day, or my son who's a UFC fan. All he wants to talk about is Conor McGregor. So again, it gives me that situation to be present in the family home. So that's where I find the best time for meditation is for me.
I love that. So being more coherent when you're with your family instead of being distracted. That's a beautiful tip. One thing that I find post-workout is getting in the sauna, because that really helps to bring down that sympathetic tone and increase the parasympathetic tone. So sauna therapy is unique. And I know you talk about that in the role. I want to kind of transition here, Owen, to detoxification. And this is an aspect that in the traditional fitness community, we don't see a lot of emphasis on this. I mean, I follow a lot of, strength and conditioning type folks on Instagram, and they're eating foods that are rich in toxins and processed chemicals and food additives, and all the bodybuilding, stuff in the retail stores are loaded with coloring agents and endocrine disrupting chemicals. And so this is a big aspect that you like to emphasize, this role of detoxification. So let's kind of talk about a practical approach to someone that wants to gain strength and burn fat. Where do you start with them when it comes to detox?
So the first thing is, we all bioaccumulate a number of toxins during our lifetime, and the major issue is when I get people that are in the physique or the bodybuilding world, they've eaten crap loads of tuna. So that's number one thing that we take out of the diet. So again, as I'm sure you know, Robert Roundtree, phenomenal guy when it comes to detoxification. He has a very simple approach. First thing we're going to try and do is to avoid any toxins. The second thing we're going to do is try to upregulate the elimination or mobilize these toxins and get them out of the body. The problem is, a lot of fitness people and personal trainers will have a client to come into them. Maybe they're 45, maybe they're 50, and they run the complete crap out of them. And these guys are liberating all these storage toxins in the adipocytes and don't have the GI health to get rid of the toxins, or the lymphatic health to be able to liberate this sweat. So the first thing that we do is we start on a nutrient-rich diet. a nutrient-rich diet that's colorful, we eat like a rainbow, and we eat real food. So we say to our clients, did your breakfast ever run around the field? Did it ever fly? Did it ever swim? Did it ever grow? If it doesn't follow those rules, I don't think it deserves to be in your mouth. So we try to concentrate firstly on real food. We support phase 2 and phase 2 detoxification. But before that, we look at the gut. We get the gut healthy, we get people regular, and then we can start to liberate these toxins. But unfortunately, going the other way and just exercising people and cutting their calories low is not optimal in order for detoxification to take place. As you know, it's a very metabolically demanding process, and a lot of things need to be in place. But the gut, I can't stress, the gut and eating real food are our first 2 approaches.
Yeah, you bring up a really unique perspective and vantage point of this role of detoxification. And when people embark on these weight loss programs, I never really thought about it that way. But yeah, they are over-exercising and under-eating. So in your perspective, you think that could be due to, the fat cell liberation of stored toxins, which can actually make people feel sick. And maybe that's why they don't adhere to the program. Have you seen that in your practice?
Yeah. We have television programs over in Ireland. I'm sure you have in the States, The Biggest Loser, and everybody's crying. And I see these programs and I feel terrible, first of all, because these people don't have the biomechanics or the posture. They've postural compensation because they're overweight, their knees, their lower back. These people shouldn't be doing repetitive exercise. They're going to wear their joints down. Second, they could put them on a low-calorie diet and they think they're just going to burn this fat. These, again, as the adipocytes release these endocrine disruptors causing mood problems, sleep problems, LPS is circulating through the body. What we want to try and do is support them first with good nutrients, exercise them as much as they can without undue fatigue and joint damage. So sauna therapy is fantastic for that standpoint. But if all you have is a hammer, everything is a nail, so you're just exercising the crap out of people isn't going to get you better results. So that's when it has to be more individual. Mightn't make great television program, but it has to be more individual. Has to be.
Yeah, that's beautiful. One of the things that I see on these popular television programs that we're both referring to is these really overweight people that probably are really susceptible to low back pain and knee pain, and they're flipping tires and they're doing all these things that, I really probably not good for their ergonomics and so forth. So what sort of exercise do you have people doing? Light walking? I mean, are they doing squats? Like, walk us through someone walk us through a program that someone that has a lot of weight to lose. What does that maybe look like?
Okay, so first of all, when someone comes in and they may be overweight, let's say you have a client in, I had a client in last Monday, she was 168 kilos. That's a lot of weight. She's 6'1", so she's quite tall. But the first thing that I want to do is I want to make sure she's better posture. So getting up and down out of bed, stepping up and down, getting in and out of a chair is crucially important. Next thing is what we try and do is we get her to walk as far as she feels comfortable she can walk. So let's say it might be only a 15-minute walk, 7.5 minutes one way, 7.5 minutes back. But it's 2 or 3 times a day, and it's every single day during the week. And as she loses weight and she complies with her nutrition, that's when we start to increase the exercise. But exercise, I'm more doing exercise for her to relax, not necessarily to burn calories, but I really focus on the nutrition. And once she's got the nutrition down over the first 3 weeks, then we gradually increase the exercise. A stationary bike is also something that we use quite a lot. Fire infrared sauna is something that we also use. We also have a doctor that we refer out to who also does some chelation therapy and IV vitamin therapy, which is we found very beneficial for people. I know it might sound like an oxymoron, but a lot of overweight people we found are actually malnourished. So again, they've been eating a lot of the wrong types of food to give the body the nutrients that they actually need for hormonal balance and detoxification.
I love that approach. Now let's go to the flip side, the corporate executive that wants to put on muscle, or the UFC fighter. We know in the fitness community, it's, eating 2 grams of protein per kilo of body weight. It's heavy emphasis on protein. And now in the functional medicine community, we know that excessive protein may be deleterious to the microbiome and so forth. So how do we balance this, eating for fitness and maximizing muscle protein synthesis, but also supporting the microbiome? Do you have any insights working with clients and doing the stool testing and more of this functional training approach that you can share with us?
Well, initially, the first thing that we found that when we have people looking to put on muscle mass, they do the same thing. They overeat on protein. However, when I've addressed people's protein consumption, not only do I find it's excessively high, and they try to supplement a lot of protein shakes during the day, but they don't have the digestive enzymatic levels to digest the food that they're eating. And they're eating copious amount of eggs, copious amount of tuna and chicken, and they're not having a good rotation diet. So and they give you a very bad answer. No, we've no 1 gram per kilo of lean body mass per person. We ideally start off with around 1 gram, and then we gradually increase it up depending on their digestive ability, their GI health, and their symptoms. I do find a lot of our corporate clientele, they massively undereat. And again, in your book, which I must give you kudos for, it's a fantastic book, and I've given it as a present to so many people. When I look at their diets and we look at their circadian clock system, they're having no breakfast, if anything. They're having a minute protein intake at lunch and having a huge sumo wrestling diet dinner. So for the corporate executive, I like to just space protein out during the day. But the first thing that we like to do for a corporate executive is get good greens on the plate. The second thing we like to do is get good fats on the plate. And then last thing is protein. The problem is protein tends to be forced for a lot of bodybuilders, and carbohydrates tend to be forced for a lot of executives. So we just like to have them more of a balance. And then pending their results and their symptoms, we increase or decrease accordingly. But we don't have a set system for anyone, but we have an approach that we start off with.
That's beautiful. So you really address, make sure digestion is working optimally before we start to tinker and test with these different macronutrient levels, which leads me to the next question. Do we start with heart rate variability and mind-body strategies to improve that parasympathetic tone, or are you recommending supplements to improve digestion? Like, where do you start with people? I mean, what have you found to be successful there?
So the first thing we like to do is we try to get a good breakdown of the whole week. So we give them a questionnaire for the whole week, and we find out what times they're eating, how much fluids they're having. One thing that I have found is that in the corporate world, people tend not to eat till later on in the daytime. Tend to have a lunch and go and then a very big dinner. So first of all, we flip that in the head. And how we generally do that is we stop people having dinner for 3 nights a week. If you stop one of your clients having dinner 3 nights a week, they will not leave the house on the 4th day without having breakfast. And that helps us to get their digestive and their metabolic rate up and going. Next thing that we try and do is when I assess people's water intake, they have a lot of water at each meal because they don't think about drinking it during the day. And as you know, that's going to dilute digestive enzymes and interfere with how well they digest their food. Next thing we do is that 5, 10, 15 protocol. They have 5 belly breaths before they have their meal. They can close their eyes, they can meditate if they want, but it's 5 diaphragmatic breaths, relaxing the body, putting the knife and fork down for 10 seconds between every bite, and making sure the meal is not finished for about 15 minutes. 15 minutes is the goal minimum. And they have to get away from their office to do that. And once we do those approaches, if things aren't working, we look into maybe hydrochloric acid and some digestive enzymes. A lot of people in Ireland, actually, it's quite common for their gallbladder to be removed. So we may need to look into ox boil and so on, but depends on the client. So that's our initial approach. But again, getting people to rest in a restful state, away from the office, having the 5 belly breaths, taking your time, having it with a friend is something that I always try to recommend people do rather than eating on their own. And most food you can hold in your hand, like a burger or a sandwich or a bagel, gets eaten way too fast. So I like these people to sit down and relax and have their meal as much as they can.
Owen, I love that practical approach. That's a fantastic way to really get back to mindful eating. And it makes a lot of sense. You know, when you are holding that grass-fed burger, even with lettuce, I mean, the natural inclination is just to tear into it. So it's nice to use your fork, put it down, take a few breaths. And I like that idea of just taking 15 minutes to complete a meal. And I've shared this on the podcast before, but I mean, when I go out to dinner with friends or family, even this happened last night, I'm always the last one to eat. And people are looking at me like I'm, not hungry or I'm dieting. And I'm just saying, no, I'm taking my time, being mindful, part of the conversation. So try to be the last one to finish your plate if you're eating with a group, which is awesome advice. So Owen, let's transition now, if we could, to metabolic flexibility. That's a huge aspect of some of the upcoming training programs that you talk about. It's a hot emerging topic in the research. Can you kind of define what metabolic flexibility is and how you assess it, and then what we can do with that information?
Okay, so one of the things that it's very evident, and Charles has a protocol called biosignature modulation, where you assess skin folds in relation to how well people balance hormones. I've done a lot of hormonal testing, and sometimes that doesn't necessarily match for everybody. However, there is some type of people, we call them carb tolerant people, that can eat quite a lot of carbohydrates and not put on any weight. And then there's other type of people that look at a carbohydrate and they get fat. So what we're trying to do is, we're not going to say you can never have carbohydrates, but what we try and do is we assess the waist to hip ratio. And we found that people that have a high waist ratio, when we do give them carbohydrates, they sort of stay inflamed for quite a long period of time. So what we try and do is, we don't cook carbs out. We don't. We just control them. You know, so what we have a little very simple analogy. It's called the ABC: adequate protein, balanced fats, and controlled carbohydrates. So again, we're looking at having the right amount of protein, the right amount of essential fats, but timing the carbohydrates to suit people that are metabolically inflexible. So people that don't do well on carbohydrates, that put on a lot of weight, we just give them carbohydrates maybe after training or at dinner time. We control it until the weight loss starts to come, and then we can cycle it up and down. We have one of our trainers outside, Stephen, a brilliant guy. The fella can eat pizzas, never put on weight. Not everyone should follow his diet. Again, there's other people in the gym that can take carbohydrates post-workout and not put on body fat and put on muscle mass, but it has to be individual. So constant calorimetry assessments, as in waist to hip circumference, skin fold assessments, circumference measurement are essential. And then again, we do some blood work to see if inflammation is up there with like homocysteine and cholesterol and so on. Because the key thing is we want to make sure we're as individual as we can be, and we monitor it on a regular basis to make sure we may need to change something if possible.
Oh, that's beautiful. So you don't really use finger pick blood glucose testing. You like that waist to hip ratio is more of a metric to see their carbohydrate tolerance, and then you'll gauge carbs based upon that.
Yeah, no, we did use the finger prick for a while, but what we try to find is we're training personal trainers. We're not training physicians. We're not training doctors. So what we want to do is we want to stay within our scope of practice, and within our scope of practice is well-being, is improving performance either on the football pitch or in the office, and maybe changing someone's body composition. So by using a circumference measurement, it's very relative to their goal, maybe a suit size or a dress size, and allows us to constantly assess things on a regular basis. So we try to keep it within the scope as much as we can.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way to do that. And then, so basically what I heard you say is as individuals start training more and losing that belly fat, they might be able to tolerate more carbohydrates because they're storing more glycogen, their muscles are less, the ectopic lipid deposition is not as great in the skeletal muscle, so that they're more metabolically flexible. So what does that carbohydrate cycling kind of look like once people become more metabolically flexible? Are they eating carbs 3 days a week? Have you found like on heavy days like back or leg days, or what are some guidelines that you like to recommend, or is it all individual?
No, it is all individual. Normally what we'll have is, depending on the person, so when someone's body fat comes down, or someone's waist or their visceral adipose tissue fat mass comes down, we'll introduce more carbohydrates. We'll always have carbohydrates in the diet. People don't think that vegetables are carbohydrates, or fruits are carbohydrates, unfortunately, but they'll always be in the diet, and we will always have some sort of quinoa or sweet potato or rice in the diet, but we will cycle and increase it on heavy training days. So like a leg day, they'll increase it, or a high intensity interval training day, they'll release it, they'll increase it, and then possibly over the weekend. So it might be a situation where someone has Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are relatively low carbohydrate days, as in maybe only 20% of their meal at dinner is carbohydrates. Then maybe on Saturday and Sunday will increase it. So it could be 4 low days, 1 medium day, which they increase it after a workout and at their dinner, and then Saturday and Sunday they may have a bit more on their dinner time. But we try to put it into their lifestyle. So again, executives may want to go out for dinner the weekend, so we time it so they can have it for their starter in their main, and if they want to have a dessert that they're not taking an intolerant food. But we try to time it in their natural schedule, if you like. And some days people might do 2 low days, 2 medium days, and more high days. It depends on when they're peaking. If they're competing at the weekend in a competition, then we'll carb cycle them or carb load them as such.
Yeah. Oh, that's a beautiful advice. Oh, and one of the things that some of my clients complain to me about when they start to exercise and go on more of a ketogenic diet is that they're not putting on muscle. And what I've found is, generally it's that their muscles are depleted of glycogen. And so they say, Mike, I'm getting stronger and I feel better in the gym, but I just look like skinnier. And I've noticed there's this correlation, and I've figured this out, through years of training myself, that when you eat high carbs, you tend to retain more water and you look more fuller and more hypertrophy. So have you found that? And what do you say to clients when they say, like, gosh, I feel stronger, I feel like I'm getting there, but I just look skinny? And how much of that is related to water retention and carbohydrates?
You know what? I have a good friend of mine, Dr. Eric Serrano, and he's got a huge amount of research on this, and he's my go-to guy for a lot of this information. But what we basically found is if you go any longer than 4 days of super low carbohydrates, your glycogen depleted, not only from your liver, but also from your muscle. So you tend not to be able to put on muscle size. So every 4th day, generally, we have an increase in carbohydrates. Also, we use some creatine, but again, it's been shown that the people that are magnesium deficient won't be able to store that sugar into the muscle cell and won't be able to put on some soy. So magnesium is also something that we address for those people. But generally, we don't go any more than 4 days on a lower carbohydrate diet because that's not going to be conducive to increasing muscle mass. And for those people, we may actually add a 1-to-1, let's say, of a Targo or some sort of sugar post-workout for them and not have too much carbohydrate at dinner. But how they feel, their muscle size, their endurance will all dictate how much we add onto it. But definitely, I fully agree. If someone's low carbohydrate for a long time, they won't be able to put on a muscle mass.
Yeah, and they complain, even though their workouts may be okay, they complain they look skinny. So it's kind of an interesting conundrum there. So let's kind of finish off here, Eoin, with the ketogenic diet. There's, as you know, so much interest in this. People are really excited about nutritional ketosis and so forth. What are your general thoughts here? I know you look at things from a functional perspective, looking at gene polymorphisms. You mentioned the 23andMe testing. Have you found different genotypes or different single nucleotide polymorphisms or body types, you know, the mesomorphs or endomorphs and so forth that do well or don't do well on ketosis? Any guidelines or tips you can share with us?
It's something that, again, I'm looking heavily into at the moment. What I have found is, at the moment, a lot of Irish women of the age, I'm not going to get myself in trouble with my clients, but of my 40-year-old plus females, I found that they do a lot better on a lower protein, higher essential fat, lower carbohydrate diet. People that are a little bit bigger, I think they don't do well on a lot of carbohydrates. Again, they're quite inflamed. I don't think they manage them that well. So at the moment, I found guys that are that bit bigger or the higher body fat, they tend to do much better on a ketogenic diet. Females of a certain age bracket, they don't do very well on a high protein diet, so it tends to be more lower protein, higher fat, and controlled carbohydrates. But I definitely think there is something to do with the genetic polymorphisms of whether people do better or worse on a ketogenic diet. That I haven't done too much research in, to be honest.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I know there's some different aspects where interest in the ApoE4 genotype and even the MTHFR is how it relates to fatty acid oxidation. So that's pretty fascinating. So I thought I would address it because it does come up. And I do hear this from some of the younger women in their 30s. They say, you know what, I didn't feel well on a ketogenic style diet. But like you mentioned, the women in their 40s tend to feel better. So I wonder if there's some hormonal connection there, if estrogen affects some aspect of it. I don't know. There's some interesting...
Definitely there's something. Again, I had a lady recently and we got her tested and she had the 2 VDR variations. So she needed a bit more vitamin D. She did have the methylator gene the 2 variations. So again, we had to address that. But again, in relation to from a ketosis point of view, we haven't looked too much into it. But definitely it's food for thought. So you can send on more research, Mike, as you get it. I gladly appreciate it.
Yeah, well, let's stay in touch on this. I know one of our mutual friends, Alessandro Ferretti, is actively implementing some of this research and doing a lot of kind of experimentation on his clients, if you will, and looking at genes and heart rate variability and different biometrics. So we'll definitely follow that story. But Eoin, before we go to final questions, you have an awesome seminar coming up in Australia where you're teaching these concepts and these foundational principles to personal trainers. I would love to know a little bit more about that, you know, some of the formats and some of the, you know, different paradigm shifting ideas that you're bringing into the personal training world. So let's kind of talk about that a little bit, and then we'll go to some final questions.
Okay, so again, I've been lucky enough to travel around teaching to personal trainers for a very long time. And unfortunately, one of the areas that's lacking is individualization. So what I've done is, over many years, I've not necessarily become an expert because I am in no means an expert, but I found a lot of different ways that don't work. So by giving other trainers a method of assessing whether it be insulin may be an issue, or gut health may be an issue, or your client may need a bit more help in detoxification, or assessing how to increase fat loss or improve muscle mass, not only the genetic approach, but much more a genetic approach. So we put together a program which is applying functional medicine for the personal trainer. And one thing that I have found, there's a lot of not great supplement companies out there. So I was lucky enough to come across Zymogen a few years ago, and I found them exceptional. Not only the product exceptional, but their aftercare is exceptional. So if you want to find anything out about any one of their supplements, it's very easy to get to. And again, their staff are fantastic. So I've been using their products for a very long time. And what we've done is we've linked together. So what's going to happen is now I'm going to be teaching this 2-day course. And before the course happens, there'll be 6 webinars provided by Zymogen, giving the personal trainer information on who should take a multivitamin and how is a multivitamin put together and what's in the fish oil and what's the benefit of EPA in relation to DHA. Well, other companies don't do that in relation to magnesium and zinc and vitamin D. Who needs these staples? Then they come to the 2-day seminar and we educate the trainers how to use supplements, but not only how to use the supplements, but how to assess their clients if supplements are needed. It may not be needed for everybody. We get their diet right, we get their food sorted, we look into their sleep, their digestion, their mood, their energy, their hormone balance, and we try to use a combination of mindfulness and lifestyle and exercise and supplementation to balance our clients, to get them on the road to improving their health. And that's ultimately how the course came about, from seeing so many clientele and teaching to so many trainers and finding that they were just pushing the same system all the time. Trainers after this course will not only have a fantastic company behind them that they can go to and find out more information about through some clients, but they're going to have an approach that's going to be allowed them to dictate their intervention specific to the client they have in front of them.
Yeah, that's beautiful, and also give the personal trainers a better, unique, aspect to their business. Because they become trained in functional nutrition, whereas so many, personal trainers are kind of teaching the same old model. Periodization and increased protein, low carb, and it's like, if you want to differentiate yourself from a business standpoint, so you get more referrals, more clients, you need to bring some new tools to the table. And so this is really a unique aspect to keep sharpening this on, making your business more competitive and giving people more options to improve their health. And you mentioned Zymogen is a really unique line to do this with, because, Owen, everything we've been talking about here, from reducing stress to improving metabolic flexibility to improving sleep quality and decreasing restlessness during sleep, Zymogen has a bunch of excellent tools that are free of any allergens and endocrine disrupting chemicals and synthetic sweeteners. So they're really an awesome line from that standpoint. So it's a great partnership. So this is a 2-day course, I believe, in Australia. And do you have plans to take this elsewhere? And if so, how can people learn more about it?
At the moment, I'll send you the link on. It's on the Zymogen website. We're doing 2 days in Sydney, 2 days in Melbourne, and 2 days in Brisbane. And then we will be teaching 1 in London before the end of this year, and also 1 in Dublin before the end of this year. We haven't any dates for 2017 as of yet, but that's where we're going to start off. Over in Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane, 1 in London, 1 in Dublin before the end of the year.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. So I'll put that landing page up on the website at highintensityhealth.com/Zymogen, which is spelled XYMOGEN. Again, highintensityhealth.com/Zymogen. That will take you to the landing page where you can learn more about this awesome event. So if you're a personal trainer or know of a trainer and you want to excel your business in your tools, definitely check that out, because that's going to be an awesome event. So Owen, we have 3 final questions that we've asked every guest on the podcast. And the first question is, if there was one herb, nutrient, or botanical that you just could not live without, what would that, or it could be a whole food, for example, bone broth, some people mention, what would this ingredient or nutrient be, and why?
Oh, well, I should have already prepped this, because I've listened to all your podcasts. I should have really got one beforehand. I'll be honest, I've been using a lot of berberine the last year and a half, and it just ticks so many boxes. It's a no-brainer. It just ticks so many boxes and we've had fantastic results with it. So that's what I say. Berberine, phenomenal.
Yeah, and you personally are taking it for blood sugar issues, for gut health. What have you found to be effective?
Well, exactly. Blood sugar levels, good health, it's antifungal, antibacterial. It just ticks so many boxes. So when we have a client come in and we want to put something into their diet that's going to tick a lot of boxes and help a lot of systems, it just really helps. Fantastic.
That's awesome. So Owen, you mentioned you had 3 children, you're running a busy business, you're the director of the Irish Strength Institute, you're teaching all these seminars. We know you're a busy guy. We want to know what makes you successful. We know successful people have a morning routine, something that they do on a habitual basis every morning. So if you could share with us briefly, what your first couple hours of your day looks like and how you structured it that way, and give us some details and insight about that.
Okay, so again, this is an assistant that I've come up with myself. I've read a number of books like Miracle Morning by Hal Enrod and The One Thing and so on. So I've got a lot of insight from other people. What I like to do the first thing in the morning is I have my phone on airplane mode. and it's not in the bedroom. So that's number one thing. When I get up in the morning, I generally will shower, then I'll have my breakfast. I won't go near the phone. I won't turn it on to check any messages. The only time I will is if I have a client booked in the next half hour that need to check if they've cancelled or something like that. That's the only time I'll check it. Then when I get up, I'll have my breakfast, and I'll go to the gym. Once I come to the gym, I'll generally do between 20 to 60 minutes of some sort of study. And my rule is, if I don't do some sort of study, I'm not allowed to train. And then I'll probably train around 10 o'clock and then kick off the day from there. So normally I'm up with my family because they had to go to school, up about 7 o'clock, have breakfast, get the kids started to school, and then head to work, get my study done, and then I'll train.
That's fabulous. So your future self would not allow you to do the study if you did I mean, when you say study, we're talking about like doing research, sharpening the saw, reading some books and so forth. So you purposely place that before you work out because you'd rather work out instead of do that.
Yeah, that's it. So and what I do is I have an Audible account, so I'll always listen to a book on the way to the gym. So my goal is to get through a book a week on Audible, and then I have my own study on the computer that I have to do. It's just that if I get out on the gym floor, that's me done. I can't get away from clients or questions and so on. So I like to have my study time in the gym. People know not to disturb me. You like to know not to come in now, and then I can go out and do my thing.
Yeah, that's a beautiful piece of advice. I think people would really resonate with that and plan their day around that, because we all love to work out and can be there for hours and hours, so forcing that study and that research is really awesome. So, and the final question here, if you were to rub shoulders with someone from the World Health Organization or some high level politician of sorts and just had 30 seconds to share with them one lifestyle or health tip, what would you want them to know that maybe they can implement some sort of policy around? What would you share with them and why?
Well, the first thing I think is health education is massively skewed up. Most of the information that people have about food is from marketing campaigns. So we have a very simple approach. We call it the 5-finger approach, that you feed yourself. Nobody's ever eaten food by accident. So every food that somebody consumes, or any meal they have, should have some sort of protein, should have some sort of fat, should have some sort of carbohydrate, some should have vitamins and minerals. The problem is most of the food that people are consuming don't have those 5 things in it. So I think it's more about health education and starting off not only with the parents, but also with the kids at a younger age. The food, actually, on the way to work today, I just seen a group of kids having a bag of chips for breakfast. I nearly beeped the horn at them. So the education when it comes to food, it just isn't there. So start off from the schools and educate the parents and the teachers so that the kids, as they move forward, know that food should have, or every meal should have the 5 components.
Yeah, beautiful advice. It starts at home. Well, Eoin, I love talking with you. Your wealth of knowledge, as our listeners, I'm sure, can tell. So if folks want to learn more about your work, I know you have a YouTube channel. You're really active on Facebook. What's the one channel if folks are just driving right now and they want to check you out? How can they do that?
The best way to contact us would be the Irish Strength Institute Facebook page, and is the best page. That's where we update the most often things, and we're more interactive on the Facebook page.
Yeah, and for folks, if you're listening right now, some of your videos, Eoin, have been viewed like 10, 15,000 times on that Facebook page. So you provide a lot of really cool raw content that's really usable and actionable and people can accessible, right? When they're just sitting there on Facebook, it's a lot better than watching cat videos and some of the other violent videos on Facebook. So Eoin Lacey, I really appreciate you coming on the show. Thanks for sharing such insightful and practical information. And folks, we're going to post the show notes at highintensityhealth.com/Eoin, which is spelled EOIN. So really appreciate you tuning in and sharing a moment of your day with us, and we'll catch you on the next episode.